After the original Scott Pilgrim game was delisted and the feature film underperformed badly at the box office, it did seem like we wouldn't see the comic book Canadian again in any other media. But with the film becoming a bit of a cult hit, and Ubisoft finally listening to the mountain of fans asking for a reissue of the game, that was set to change. Scott Pilgrim did return to consoles in 2021, but something was missing. Aside from the fact Knives is actually locked to a Ubisoft account in the newer re-release, which sucks, there was no additional content added, making it a straight port of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 game. Why, I hear you ask? Well, that's because many of the key developers behind it had since left Ubisoft to form the studio Tribute Games, who weren't involved at all in the re-release. With Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, a new animated series by Netflix in 2023, it was time for Scott to once again return to the world of video games, and fittingly, Tribute Games are the one behind this sequel. A few years back, I did a retrospective review of the original Scott Pilgrim game after it turned 10 years old here on the channel. It's worth having a watch, as this sequel builds on many of the themes of the original and many of my predictions in that video I wanted to see for a sequel have come true in Scott Pilgrim EX. So I hope you enjoyed this review by myself, Random Gamer Riven, editor of Randomised Gaming, of Scott Pilgrim EX. Just as a note, I did approach Tribute Games for a review copy, which they kindly provided. Now, since Tribute Games formed, they have gone on to work on a whole raft of 2D sprite-based titles. Highlights from their library include Mercenary Kings, Flint Hook, and Panzer Paladin. However, that's not all, as in 2022 they developed one of the best modern scrolling beat-em-ups in the form of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. And last year also saw their release of Marvel Comic Invasion, another excellent addition to the scrolling beat-em-up genre. Tribute Games have truly mastered making games in the genre, so it was only right they developed the sequel. Alongside many of the original developers, artists and animators of the first game, Brian Lee O'Malley returns to advise, and Anamanaguchi are back on music duty. From the moment Scott Pilgrim EX starts, it's clear this is both bigger and bolder than Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Starting with a fully animated opening intro, and while a few fans may miss the pixel art look of the original intro, I will say I really like the look of the new one, as it reminds me so much of the 1980s cartoons you used to get. Now, EX follows the alternative timeline seen in the Scott Pilgrim Takes Off TV series, which means Scott is no longer at odds with Ramona's ex-boyfriends. After starting the game, we get a scene very reminiscent of many an 80s and 90s arcade game, with our hero Scott watching as all his friends are kidnapped by a metal version of himself, who is a clear homage, of course, to Metal Sonic from the Sonic the Hedgehog games. Then it's off to pick a player character and start the fight back. Scott and Ramona both return as playable characters, but with most of the original cast having to be rescued in-game this time around, the rest of the team is made up of Roxy Richter, Robot 01, Matthew Patel, Lucas Lee, and the big baddie Gideon Graves. This sequel features a whole new moveset for each character. It also offers more different playstyles over the original, featuring better throwing and air juggling systems, making the characters feeling less of a carbon copy of one another as they did in the first game. Scott is the classic brawler style, Lucas is more a grappler due to his size, while Gideon and Roxy use swords in combat, and Robot 01 is a blaster play with all his over-the-top moves. The minute you step out into the first stage, you can feel that beautiful tribute game pixel artwork on the screen. The quality is a big step up over the first game, showing the years of experience the team have making games now. It also uses plenty of bright and bold colours to bring the game to life, something that was standard in 80s and 90s arcade games to make them stand out in dimly lit arcades. Each stage is full of so many subtle touches you can spend all day looking at them, from reactive NPCs to all the wildlife running around. It's touches like this that many modern games often miss, and it just adds a level of class and polish to the game that you rarely see these days. While the original Scott Pilgrim game was more an arcade style scrolling beat 'em up with a level up system, Scott Pilgrim EX draws from the open world beat 'em up genre that started with River City Ransom. So you are free to explore the streets of Toronto at your leisure. Want to grab some food and equipment before taking on the next boss? Well, that choice is yours as you wander the map. Certain areas are restricted by the main story, which unlock as you progress through it and rescue your fellow bandmates. There's also a handy map to let you navigate the streets of Toronto. It's quite a big map, and shortcuts slowly become available as you progress through the game, making backtracking a bit faster, and you will be backtracking a lot in this game due to the nature of the design. It could have perhaps done with one or two more shortcut routes. One to Castlevania in the later half of the game was much needed, I felt. One thing I will admit, having a fast travel system in New Game Plus would have been really helpful via, say, an unlockable assist character. The stage design isn't as varied as the original game, as most of it takes place on city streets. There are a few alternative areas such as the beach and ice age, seen early in the game, while there is a whole section dedicated to Konami's Castlevania series called Castlevania. The robot elevator is a fun, challenging battle later in the game, while one boss fight is set in a black and white film noir, like an old 1930s cartoon, and then there's the train boss battle, which is a real breakaway from the rest of the game, not mentioning all the hidden mini-games that homage Street Fighter 2 stages. Each map section also features different events on them. One time you might find yourself fighting robots, next time the vegans may be there instead. The clue is in the name of the scene when you enter it, as the instance for each stage changes every time you enter and exit it. Harder scenes for each section unlock as the game goes on, and if it says Quiet Place, you'll get a version with a bonus item and maybe a friendly NPC to talk with. Visually, the game is just spot on in all areas. My only real criticism is that I just wish there was more of it. A few areas also underuse their unique style. The noir section, for example, only has one boss scene that ends all too quickly, and there's no reason to return either. Scott Pilgrim EX delivers on the combat as well. Tribute games have really become modern day masters of the genre, and EX addresses the pacing flaws with the original game. This time around, player characters have access to all their moves from the start, and nothing needs to be unlocked. While unlocking moves is a nice idea in practice, the original game was set up so you likely wouldn't unlock your character's best moves until after you'd finished the game, which was a bit of a downer. Another issue with the original was the speed of combat, which started off far too slow, making those early stages a real slog with new characters. Whereas EX feels much faster from the get-go, and equipping accessories allows you to boost your stats even over your maximum stat growth. Map sections are also quick-fire bouts ranging from 5 to 15 enemies normally, and for the most part you can just dash through them if you don't want to stop and fight the gang there. The new throwing setup is also far better than the first game, allowing you to throw just about every enemy in the game to mix up your fighting style. However, a few enemies are immune to it, and some larger foes need to be weakened first if you aren't Lucas Lee, so keep that in mind. Defensive wise, you can choose to block incoming attacks or even parry them. That said, I rarely use block and parry myself and preferred on the whole to try and dodge attacks, largely due to the fast paced nature of the game and the fact that health is very easy to restore either via shopping, assist attacks, or even getting lucky with a dice roll. Speaking of assists, this time around you get a choice of assist characters to help you, which can be changed via the in-game menu at any time, so long as you have enough GP points to summon them. Some buff your character stats temporarily, while others damage enemies. You can also unlock even more as you progress through the story. Highlights include Young Neil causing a full screen fan stampede that damages everything it hits and is great for dishing out major damage to bosses. It also reminds me of a certain super attack from Tromboni in Marvel vs Capcom 2. I'll also admit to spamming the healing ability of the Katayangami twins an awful lot. Ramona's cat assist is a fun one to watch but isn't that strong. With 15 assist characters in total, there is plenty to choose from and far more than the original game. It's just a shame Mr. Chow, the sword-fighting father of knives, doesn't return. His only cameo is as a background NPC this time around. As for the music, Anamanaguchi has certainly gone for a slightly different tone and feel for Scott Pilgrim EX. A few of the tracks in the original game were a bit hard on the ears, however there were some good tracks also. Certainly the later boss ones really injected some energy into the fights. EX's music is quite a bit more mellow. In part this is due to the gameplay change from arcade style single stages to an open world, which means you will be hearing many songs on repeat, certainly for locations you frequently visit. It's also fair to say Anamanaguchi have also had over a decade to refine their music style as well since the previous game. It certainly shows, as the music is a mix of subtle background tunes and more action-packed themes for the boss fights. There's certainly a different feel to the music, and while I would have liked one or two more high energy tracks for some of the more intense moments, it supports the game perfectly and I really enjoyed listening to it. I've even got it on in the background as I write this script. It really starts on a high with the character selection screen music being one of my favourite tracks, capturing the mood of the battle ahead perfectly. Everything comes together to create an excellent experience. The story takes you over the whole map fairly rapidly as you rescue the members of Scott's band. The story itself is broken down into different missions against the various gangs in the game and usually ends with a boss fight. The dialogue is fast and pacey, and it changes pending on the player character. Having played a number of the modern River City games in recent years, including the first River City Girls and River City Rivals Showdown, I'm going to say I find both of them a bit too grindy in how they play and actually preferred Scott Pilgrim EX in almost every way. As the pacing of the open world is just so much better in Scott Pilgrim EX, it only really suffers against them when it comes to the length, as other than seeing the different endings for each character, there isn't much reason to play New Game Plus unless you want all the achievements or trophies. There is no hidden character like Negative Scott to unlock either this time around. Metal Scott seemed like the perfect fit as a hidden character, but alas no. The first one featured a few multiplayer verse games and they're absent here as well, which is a real pity as it's a quick feature I would have liked to have seen again. In fact, a lot of the bonus fights, minigames and events are really cool little gaming homages, but often very short and don't offer much in the way of reward, with most either granting you money or upgrade items, the latter of which becomes useless once you have a max stat character, and they don't convert to bonus cash either if you are maxed out. As a former game staffer myself, I did feel that the very last sections of both this and Marvel Cosmic Invasion felt a little bit rushed. I wonder if there was too much overlap with both games being developed around the same time. As an example, the last quest in Scott Pilgrim EX has you collecting some items that might be a nod to another series, not going to spoil which. This event takes you to a room to fight a mob of standard enemies for gangs and feels like X boss fight was cut out here. I kind of was expecting a rematch with the gang leaders or a new boss, but nope, just a mob fight. No Galactus fight in Marvel either, which was disappointing. A few of the later boss fights also felt a little cut back. There wasn't anything on the scale of the giant robot seen in the first game, and I was expecting at least one full-size screen boss. Maybe it will be in the DLC? Likewise, a hidden boss fight against the older Scott and Ramona characters from the TV show would have been a great idea. As it stands, the endgame is the weakest part of it, but overall I hugely enjoyed the whole playthrough. As a long-time genre fan, I would say it doesn't do anything new, but it's a great addition to the genre. Certainly better than the first Scott Pilgrim game, and weaker modern titles like Streets of Rage 4, which in that case was more of a nostalgia grab with poor gameplay. I also enjoyed it a lot more than River City Girls, but it's not quite as good as some of the classic Konami and Capcom arcade titles. Or Tribute's own Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Fight and Rage is also another great modern example worth playing, but relies a little too much on combos. That said, both of them fall into the arcade style of the genre and not the open world side, and there is a big difference between the two styles of scrolling beat-em-ups. If you're new to open world scrolling beat-em-ups and haven't played something like River City Ransom before, or Street Gangs as it was called on the NES in Europe, I would highly recommend Scott Pilgrim EX as a great starting point. 4-player support is pretty much standard with scrolling beat-em-ups these days, and the online mode is done in the same way as Tribute's previous games. Their netcode is pretty decent, but will suffer if you connect to someone with a poor connection. I played a 2-player game online and I had no clear issues. The more players you have, the more chance of lag, however. As for the difficulty, I found it fairly easy myself playing through normal due to my experience with the genre. I also made sure to regularly level up my character's stats as I played through the game. If you don't level up, you will find the later half of the game gets quite a bit harder. I also found making use of the right assist characters really was the difference between success and defeat. In truth, I think the difficulty really is ideal for newcomers of the genre, and I think Tribute have pitched it about right. All in all, I think Scott Pilgrim EX really is a standout game for 2026. Is it a perfect example of the genre? No, but it is a big step up from the first game. My biggest complaint is that it could be a touch longer, and there is little in the way of endgame content at present, so hopefully we might see some extra modes and hidden fights along with alternative routes in future if we do get additional download content. I really did enjoy my time with it, and the game did leave me wanting more of it, which is always a good sign. I actually went out of my way to find all the secrets I could, even the hidden red turnip broom, which I'll leave you to find, but buy the spring shoes first before you go looking for it. This is definitely a recommend from me, and while it isn't up there with Guardian Heroes or Capcom's Dungeons & Dragons games in terms of the very best of the genre, it might just be the best of the open world scrolling beat-em-ups I've played. This includes the excellent River City Renegades on SNES, which only recently got an English release. Fans of Scott Pilgrim will love it, and if you haven't played the original, I highly recommend both games. Even more so if you and a friend or 3 want a couch co-op game to keep you playing all evening. You can't go wrong with any of the scrolling beat-em-ups Tributes have made over the last few years either. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, my review for Scott Pilgrim EX. As always, I hope you enjoyed our content here at Randomised Gaming. My name has been Random Gamer Riven, the editor. As always, please do like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. And I wish you all a good morning, afternoon, evening or night wherever you are in the world today.